Yeah, I believe in you. I don't believe in lucky sevens. I'm not sure about Loch Ness, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Good evening, everybody. I am so super excited to be here with you tonight. I'm back. I'm back, baby. 2.5 weeks, and I couldn't take any more. So I got on my crutch and I came on over to the studio, and we have a great interview lined up for you this evening. Of course, first, I would like to talk about our sponsor of the evening, and the sponsor of the evening is None Life. None Life, these are tablets, and this is a brand new product that they have through the None Life company. They have full nutrition to boost your immune system, and it's a complete packet. It's really super cool because, of course, they're saying this is great for people that exercise, of course. I remember my days of 2-3 hours in the gym, and this would have been a perfect packet for me to carry around with me because you really have to replace all those electrolytes, right? The hydration, you have to be careful with that. But they're also saying, celebrations the day after, it's a good hydration product. Travel, it's a fantastic hydration product. Maybe you stay out in the sun a little bit too long. So definitely go onto their website because for a first-time order, right now, you get 20% off of your entire order. And so what is it? All right, well, None Life is, like I said, water additive, and they have all natural, wonderful vitamins within this water additive. They do have, of course, this is caffeinated Cooper Show, right? So this one is the energy one, which is great for your pre-workout. You just drop it in there and take it on into the gym, go for a long run. Let the wind blow in your hair if you would like. And it's going to give you a good bit of caffeine. Actually, within one tablet of the energy product, it's 80 milligrams of caffeine per serving, 10 calories, and 3 carbs. I love that. This product is not full of sugar. So when that caffeine starts to wear off, you're not just going to be like careening down to sleepy time because your caffeine's wearing off and your sugar is like seriously crashing because it just went all the way up there. This product's not going to do that for you. It has ginseng, a blend of B vitamins, so you get your B12, B6, and the caffeine is sourced from green tea, which I love. I'm a huge tea drinker, not a coffee drinker. And I go after, a lot of the green teas and so many different wonderful products. And what I love is that unless you're going to make what I call a Cuban tea, it's, like Cuban coffee. I put like 5 bags in there to make it's terrible. That's when I really just need to go take a nap. Unless you're going to do that, yeah, you're going to feel the caffeine wear off a little bit, but otherwise you're not because it's so nice and natural. Vegan, gluten-free, great source of electrolytes. Visit nunlife.com. That's NUNLIFE.com for 20% off today. And if you don't like ordering online, or maybe you just want to go into the store and go get it, you can. And I'm so excited about that. I went into our local Publix recently. They now carry None Life tablets. Walmart, Kroger, Walgreens, you can get it there. So it's really exciting to see some of these products that came on with me very early on. I believe this was a season 2 sponsor that signed on with us, and they have been growing and expanding, and that's really, really exciting. I love to see people and companies succeed. So check it out. Good evening, Ken. All right, this is going to be a good show. We already have people connected. We got people commenting. The gentleman of the hour is Jonathan Bray. And I want to talk about Jonathan Bray before we bring him into the broadcast this evening. So Jonathan, he stars in the new film that we've all heard about because it's a huge, huge hit. We all know Serena and Venus Williams, the tennis players, right? Well, this wonderful film, King Richard, has come out. It's starring Will Smith, and Jonathan's connected with us to talk about it. He's going to talk about what is it like in COVID? Did he have any interruptions? What was it like to have a big premiere in the middle of this pandemic? And he has a lot of really interesting things to say about that, that these are the sides of the industry that we don't get to see, really, you know? So the movie tells a story of Richard Williams, the father of Venus and Serena Williams, and follows their rise in tennis. Jonathan plays an ESPN reporter who interviews Richard in the movie. Jonathan is also on a hit show called Play by Play on Roku and plays the character of Duncan in On the Verge, which is a new Netflix series. He has many whoa, okay, I mistyped this. So I'm going to go off the cuff. So he has a film that I believe it was in 2015. This film is called The Walk Around, and he released it. He's getting ready to re-release it, and I cannot wait to talk to him about it because, as we all know, theater and streaming content, like, it's all changed. And I don't know that it's really going to go back to what it was. So I have so many questions for him. I also want to get his opinion. And this might be a tough opinion. So I'm going to approach it very gracefully. Aging in Hollywood. Because any of us who last in the industry, eventually we're going to age. And I want his opinion because he has a really funny story behind that and how his look has changed over the past couple of years. So without any further ado, I'd love to bring to the broadcast Mr. Jonathan Bray. How are you, Jonathan? It's great to see you.
It is great to be here. May I just say your introduction was not of me, of your show, is outstanding. I found that incredibly entertaining. So way to go.
Oh. Well, thank you so much. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you on. I love chatting with actors and actresses, especially who are out there in Los Angeles right now, because the industry is so very interesting. And as I was reading through here, your time that you spent as an actor in King Richard, can you take me back to when did that casting process begin? And then when did the filming first begin for King Richard?
Sure. So that film was cast by Rich D'Elia, who is an amazing casting director. Sorry, my golden retriever is having a little bit of a nightmare next to me. He's asleep. Anyway, so Rich D'Elia is an amazing casting director, and I had met Rich years ago. He brought me in for various projects and so forth. And over the years, Rich would sometimes ask me to do table reads of projects that were kind of in development, or they just wanted to hear it out loud before it was actually starting to be produced. So he called me up and said, "Hey, I have this." I could tell it was sort of a high level. Most of the stuff that he would ask me to do a table read for was more, independent or a little bit lower than, say, the studio level. But this one was very hush hush, and they sent me the script. It was like if I moved my cursor away from the PDF that they sent, it would be blurred. So it was like clear this was very proprietary stuff. So it was Warner Brothers. They were doing this big film, King Richard, and he said, "Hey, we'd love you to come in for the table read and read a few parts." So that was my introduction to it. And I could tell, I read the script that night and I was like, this is a phenomenal project. And we all know, as you said, Richard Williams and Venus and Serena, but it had so much heart. It was just such a great story. It was about how, Richard and the whole family were just committed to the idea of being good people first, and that tennis was sort of a secondary component. So I went in for the table read and read a number of different roles. And fortunately, I apparently impressed the producers and the director, and they just said, "Hey, we have to use this guy." So when it came time to cast and start shooting, they gave me the role of ESP. Well, it was actually, the role was based on an actual person, an actual interview that happened. I have 2 scenes in the movie, and one of them I'm interviewing Venus. And that was based on an actual, you can YouTube that interview. So initially my character had a name, but I don't want to, be too presumptuous, but I believe there may have been some issues with getting the rights to the name or something like that. They wanted, so they ultimately called it the ESPN reporter. So then we were getting ready to shoot. in March of 2020. And lo and behold, this thing, I don't know if you've heard, called COVID hit, and production shut down. So I was sitting there thinking, they had already been shooting for about a month, and I was like, oh man, is this ever going to come back? Or if it does come back, are they going to cut my role out? So I really didn't know what would happen at that point. And up to that point, I had started going gray, since you mentioned that, for many years. I'd been dyeing my hair. And the great thing about COVID was that I was like, this is my opportunity, because the entire industry shut down. I had never had a week where I wasn't auditioning or shooting or something like that. So I never really had an opportunity to let my hair go gray. So I did. And, months later, when things finally picked back up, I was like thrilled. They called and they said, hey, we're going to shoot. We're picking production back up, and we still want you. And, are you available? And I said, yeah. I said, but I let my hair go gray. Like, is that okay? And they said, yeah, sure. That's fine. Don't worry about it. So went in and shot it, and everything worked out.
So I'm currently pulling up a picture right now, and I found one on IMDb. I'm going to bring it into the broadcast. This is you with darker hair. Now, is this picture several years ago? Is this fairly recent?
That is actually relatively recent. That was probably about a year before I let my hair go gray. So that was probably like 2019.
For just myself, let me check into my actress side and the production side of it. If I was a casting director, I would love this, because it's so easy to say, oh, okay, all right, there's my husband that I need. Or, oh, wow, okay, there's my ESPN reporter. Like, I love the diversity in being able to show that. Is that something that you would go back if somebody said, hey, would you dye it dark brown again?
Oh, sure. My apprehension was partly due to, like I said, I didn't really have time. I didn't want to take myself out of the game because when you let yourself go gray, for anyone who doesn't know this, it's not like that simple. When you've been dyeing your hair, you'd have to cut it really short, or you have to let your roots grow out. So it takes some time. And you look weird during the process. So that's kind of why I had resisted it. But I'd happily go back for any sort of role. The other issue that I had was that I generally looked younger than my years. So I started dyeing it because I had a casting director tell me when she noticed some gray hair, and she's like, you do not look old enough to have gray hair. You got to dye your hair, So I started using Just for Men, and that kind of grew into, like, I kept getting more and more gray. But yeah, I'd happily go back. My thing was always like, once the industry sees me with gray hair, will they be able to envision me as that guy again? I don't know. So that was part of the apprehension, is it's felt like, can you put this toothpaste back in the tube? But if they said, hey, dye your hair for this role, I'd be like, sure.
I think so. So I want to come back to that topic in just a minute. I'm going to hold on to the picture, and I want to come back to that, because I do have a question about King Richard. So as far as Serena and Venus and Richard, were they, since, the story does closely follow their story, were they hands-on in the process at all?
Oh, very much. Yeah. I mean, Isha and Tundi were at the table read. Venus and Serena didn't come to set anytime that I was there, but my understanding is that they were on set a fair amount. They were relatively hands-on. I don't know at what point they, essentially they had to approve the project in order for it to move forward, and they did. They gave it their blessing, so they were very involved.
Do you think that's something that, everybody sort of had in the back of their mind, that some things could be filmed and it would just like push it forever, and it would just sit in the can forever trying to get approval?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's, Tim and Trevor White, who brought the project to, they were the producers. They had this idea, I think that they'd always had an interest in their story. And so they had faith that they could tell it in a way that would win their approval. So kudos to them for, taking that leap of faith and just saying that we're going to do it the right way, and we know you'll like it, so.
That's huge. Yeah, that's really huge. All right. So take me back to the whole COVID set scenario. what did it add a lot of time to filming the project? And what was your day-to-day like within those restrictions?
Yeah. So first of all, the COVID restrictions were serious and significant. They were slightly different set to set, which was kind of interesting. As an actor, you realize that some sets took it a little differently. Some sets would have zones, and if you were in the zone that would interact with actors, so any like hair and makeup and actors who had to be around each other would be in a certain zone, and I couldn't ever go close to someone who was in a different zone, usually the grips, or you know what I mean. So that was one way that they dealt with it, I think, quite smartly. But yeah, for example, with King Richard, we were shooting the scenes that I was in. We were shooting on location at I think it was the Irvine Tennis and Racket Club, south of Los Angeles, and they had a water zone. So when you were on set, everyone was masked up all the time, and obviously the only time I could remove my mask is when we were actually rolling. But what I'm used to as an actor is I always keep a bottle of water near me because I stay hydrated, and but you couldn't drink water unless you walked to the water station. And that water station from where we were shooting, my particular scene was like 70 yards away. So, we'd take a quick break. I'd run over to the water station, drink my water, come back to the set. So that was a little challenging to try and deal with, so it was things like that made it different. And for sure slowed production down, and just the distancing that you had to keep within, with people. And they had dedicated staff to monitor the COVID restrictions to make sure that you weren't violating any of them. So they were serious about, keeping everyone safe and healthy, which good for them.
So did they have second team on set longer? Like, was Will in his trailer a lot longer than he normally would be to just try to keep to himself?
I mean, my sense was that was not the case, that he would come out when I would normally expect to see, or anytime they called first team, we were all there. We would just show up and he was there. And Will especially. I mean, he is one of the kindest, most generous, human beings. And certainly as an actor, it was phenomenal to work with him. So he had no pretense, and there was no like, hey, I'm a big star and I'm going to stay in my trailer. There was none of that.
Yeah, no. And I've heard that so many times. I have not had the privilege of being able to meet Mr. Will Smith yet. And that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking more of, just
to stay safe. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, all of the different people that are on set. It takes so many people. So, all right. Another question. I hope it's not too silly. Crafty has got to be so different. Because in crafty meals, like the only segregation you'd ever have would be cast and crew and extras, and they would be corralled in two separate. How are they doing meals on a COVID set?
They, everything was served to you, first of all. So there was no kind of self-serve buffet style anymore. They were putting stuff on your plate, whatever it was. And even if you went there to get a granola bar, whatever, they had to be the one to pull it and hand it to you and so forth. So there was that. There were things about like the cups that they would use. And then in terms of the social distancing, they had tables set up where you couldn't really sit as, close to someone as you normally would. So it was just a lot more space,
So, there's always that part in a script where every script we're reading through it and it's just like, that's just magic. That line or that monologue is just magic. Was there a moment within your script as the ESPN reporter in King Richard that you had?
For my character, you mean?
For your character.
I mean, it wasn't, it was the scene that I was in when I'm interviewing Venus and Richard interrupts me, and because I'm saying to her, God, you're so confident, how are you so confident? And he interrupts me and he says, she already answered that question. And I said, hey, Richard, we're doing an interview here. You can't keep interrupting. And he gets mad. He says, we're talking about a little black girl. Let her be a girl, and that was emblematic of the story itself, of the way Richard was protective of them, but not in a way that you thought this is a man who is just determined to make sure that his daughter is the greatest tennis player of all time. He was a man who was determined to make sure she was the best person that she could be. And he didn't want tennis to make her a different person. So he was protecting her in that way. And yeah, that was a really magical moment.
Oh, that's interesting. And I can understand that. Being a mom myself, you're a father. Was there anything that sort of struck you as, wow, that's interesting? That's something within the world of parenting I haven't thought of yet, but I'm going to keep it back here in my brain.
Yeah. So Venus and Serena have talked about this, and it's clear in the script. They used tennis as a reward. It wasn't forced upon them. They said, if you don't do your homework, there'll be no tennis practice. Whereas I think most people would have expected that a tennis parent and so forth would be, always on them to work and so forth, but they'd withhold it, and so obviously Venus and Serena wanted more, because that was the thing that they would take away when they weren't doing what they were supposed to.
Sure.
So up here, you know what I mean? No spinach for you, Oliver. You know what I mean? So yeah.
It's all about those vices, right? It's so interesting because each kid has a different vice, and one kid, it could be money. Like they just love going into that piggy bank and they count their money and they like having that control and possession over it. And the other one could be like a stuffed animal, and you take the stuffed animal away and they lose it.
Exactly.
So yeah, those vices are very powerful. And I love what you said there, because that's really going to keep, in my opinion, keep people grounded of saying, no, you have to focus on what's important and then get to do what you love. And if you get to do what you love is the most important thing in your life, hey, you just won the lottery.
Yeah.
So within production, you have a lot of shows upcoming, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But you have something that you've produced years ago that you're about to re-release, and it is called The Walk Around. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of my support jobs over the years was working at auto shows as essentially like a narrator. I had never heard of an auto show, by the way. So I was doing some stand-up comedy in New York, and my girlfriend at the time was from Detroit, and I was working in restaurants occasionally, and I just was kind of like, and she said, hey, listen, the agency that I work with is looking for some stand-ups to do this special project for the auto show. And I said, what's an auto show? So obviously she was probably like, I can't believe that, being from Detroit. But so I put myself on tape, and they flew me in to LA for the very first auto show. And I was like, whoa, this is like a whole different world. I mean, it's this enormous convention center with all the cars, and it was just millions of dollars of production. And, you'd stand up and present the car in a way that was funny. That was kind of what my job was. But I was introduced to this new world that I had never known about. And immediately the friends that I forged within with that community, we were taken with how rife for, it was just this great topic for comedy, essentially, because many of the people that did that took it very seriously, and they a lot of times were actors, and they like doing that presentation of the car was like their big moment to shine or whatnot. So we found that we said, hey, we need to create a mockumentary about this environment, and people that essentially take it a little too seriously. So what we started doing is a friend of mine borrowed a camera, and we just would roll and see what came. And we sort of organically created a couple of characters. And then so the way that auto shows work is they fly you in, and you're in 10 days, you're in a city for 10 days, and then you go to the next city. So we would just randomly show up at cities and have a camera and see what came out at that city. And then at the end of the season, we'd piece together the footage and try and start crafting a story from that. And that took years, really, of shooting the footage and finding the right editor and, sort of honing it the whole time. But it was an amazing schooling for me in terms of how to make a movie, how to tell a story, what storytelling is, so I learned about editing, and I learned about directing, and because I kind of wore all those hats. So it was a really, really cool experience.
Interesting. So I do have another question about the walk around, but I also have a question from a viewer, and I'd love to read it and see if we can answer that for him. So the question is a question for your guest when appropriate. Okay, well, thank you so much. His question is, looking at His IMDb, he has an incredible range. One movie that is incredibly different and sticks out, I saw The Babysitter, Killer Queen on Netflix a while back. What made him want to be a part of this film, which I really had fun watching, given his past roles?
I wish I could say that I was at a point in my career where I could, absolutely dictate what would come next, right? But so that was another situation where a director that I had worked with, wanted to use me for the original Babysitter. I think the question, yeah. So they brought me in, and it was a firefighter. It's kind of a cool role, and I was like, yeah, that's great. And I get killed at the end, or so we think. So that I just said, yeah, I've never really done that genre before. I mean, why not? And then when they made the sequel, I was a part of it just because, so yeah, that's how that happened.
Very interesting. So if you do go to IMDb, you can look up Jonathan Bray, and you have a very, very long list of credits I'm actually looking at right now. You spent time on The Young and Restless, Days of Our Lives. Soap opera acting is a different animal within the same craft, in my opinion. It's your timing is a little bit different. Your delivery is a little bit different. The emotions that are emoting come out very differently. Do you have a particular favorite out of film, dramatic, the drama or comedy, or what's your favorite genre? Wow, that was a lot of words just to ask you what's your favorite genre.
No, but yeah, I know what you're saying. This maybe isn't the answer you're looking for, but I really do love it all. I'd be sad if I knew I couldn't do any one of those. I love getting on stage and doing Shakespeare. I played Mark Antony. That's just a wrought, emotional kind of thing, and then something completely different where it's lighthearted comedy. I love all of it, and think it's all important. It's all important for audiences to experience that. I think because you have a lot of actors who watch this, I'll say that before I moved to when I got out of college, I was I happened to be at Logan Airport because I'm from Boston, and Glenn Close was dating a member of the Boston Bruins at the time. And it just so happened that I was standing behind her in line at the airport. I was getting ready to get on a flight. And I just thought, I can't pass this opportunity up, because I was trying to figure out should I move to New York? Should I move to Los Angeles? What should I do? And so I asked her, I said, do you have any advice? What would you recommend that I do? And she said, whatever you do, just make sure that you work. Wherever you end up, just work the muscle, put yourself in a position where you're going to do this a lot and practice it. And when you mentioned The Young and the Restless, I thought about the fact so normally I had a friend who had just moved to Los Angeles. We both moved at the same time, and he had just booked a series regular on YNR. So I had just moved out to Los Angeles. I was broke. And he said, hey, look, I'll talk to the casting director. You want to work as an extra? And I was just like, I'm an extra. But I was like, all right, I need the job. So they brought me to the set, and they tried to figure out what they could do with me. And I had been a waiter, and they needed a waiter to, so they had me be the waiter and the bartender in the bar. And I became the regular, and they gave me lines, and it just became this whole thing. And I was working on the show all the time, and I got to see how the television was shot because I was there every day. I'd enter set, leave set, and be standing behind the camera. So I saw how the cameramen did things. I saw how the producers were setting up the shot. I learned so much just because I said yes to that opportunity rather than say, oh, I'm not going to be an extra. You know what I mean? So that's to me, it's just always just being around it in some way. That's what you have to want to do.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And Young and Restless, that is, I think every household has the soap opera that either your grandmother watched or your aunt watched because she was a stay-at-home mom, in the 70s and 80s, and it was just on. Young and Restless was the one that my grandmother used to watch. So I followed it through the years. Being able to see all different sides of it really kind of from the beginning. How does that hold your hand while you're going through the walk around, where you play a car salesman within your own project, correct? So
Yeah.
you're acting, you're directing, you're producing. You're in front of the camera and you're behind the camera. That's a lot of places for your mind to go to think, okay, are we picking up on exactly the right spot? Is the wafting correct in the air? Is the lighting, the sound? Did that sound guy remember this, that, the other about the boom? Like, how do you get all that noise out of your head to be able to focus and be an actor in your own project?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. The advantage, I guess, is that you give yourself the freedom to, I don't have to worry about them moving on when I felt like that wasn't a great take. You know what I mean? Because I'm not gonna move on until I'm ready. And we were playing as we did it. So it was what you see when you watch the movie is it's very much in the Waiting for Guffman vein and the Best in Show. It feels like you're just watching a documentary. It feels like you're really there because you kind of were. I mean, we literally would be working and we had a camera in the closet and there'd be no one in the display for a second. So we pull the camera out and shoot a scene quickly and then go back and continue to do our jobs. I mean, it was done very guerrilla style. So there'd be people walking through and, you just feel that reality of it. In terms of the hats that I was wearing, yeah, what I learned on Young and the Restless and other shows, understanding when I'll be, from an editing standpoint, when am I going to be getting into the scene? When am I going to be getting out? What do I have to worry about and what do I not have to worry about? Like, that's fine. We can cut that out. Not worry about it. Just keep rolling. Say it like this. Great. Let's get that clean. You know what I mean? Because I know, okay, great. That was a great moment, but you're talking over each other. So you learn little things like that, which honestly, I think is extremely important for any actor to know in any situation. I think every actor should, intern at a casting office, should direct what they can, edit when they can, like just get to know all sides of it so that because we're storytellers. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of different people that work together to tell that story. So the more you know what everyone else's job is, the better you're going to do yours.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. That's really, truly great advice. With all of the projects that you have either releasing soon, or it looks like there's a lot that has just released. There's a couple of items that in my notes where things had come out fall 2021. One project is called On the Verge, and King Richard, of course, came out. And then there was one before that, the MEEPLE people. Can you tell us a little bit about? Let's talk about On the Verge first. What is that?
That's a Netflix series that Julie Delpy co-created, I believe. She certainly was one of the creators, and stars in. And it's essentially about, let's call them soccer moms, and dealing with life at that stage of their lives. Many of them are divorced, and so it's a comedy, but it has a lot of emotion in it. It's very funny. She was great to work with, and I played a gym teacher who they purposely, I have a great relationship with her son, but they deliberately shot it and wrote it in a way that would make her think for a second, like, is he too close to my son? And then, yeah, but not in I mean, this is a comedy, so it doesn't go to that dark place, but it was funny. So yeah.
That's nice. So they took it more like a kitsy kind of spin to it.
Exactly. But it's clear like that there's nothing going on. The son, there's no, but so it was more funny that the way a mom might actually be worried about that when someone says your son's really, I love him a lot, that sort of thing. And it's just really, anyway. Yeah.
I love that premise because it has so many different personalities that you could pop into that and make it really interesting really quick, because just naturally being a soccer mom, it's pretty interesting out there on that field.
I'm sure. I know.
It is. So MEEPLE people. What is the MEEPLE people on YouTube?
Yeah. So Dean D'Onofrio, a friend of mine, he and I have worked together on a bunch of different projects over the years. He's a writer-director, and he began, he had an idea. He actually would host a game night at his house, and he wanted to develop a series that was based on that. essentially what might be thought of as maybe, nerdier people, like the D&D crowd, like people that were into that sort of thing and their interactions with each other. So I played a character who wants to be, who fancies himself of that world, but doesn't have the street cred that they have. So I was kind of like a fish out of water, which I'm great at that. Laughing at me, I can do that pretty well. So that was sort of the premise of it. And also in it, I develop a romantic interest in the other co-creator, Erin Rose Widner, who was the other writer and creator of the show. It's pretty funny.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for giving us the recap on that. I do have another question that came in. So Mr. Michael Schwartz is asking, when did you decide you wanted to direct, and what would be your ultimate movie you would want to do in the future? So we were talking about The Walk Around, which is your own project that you directed, you produced, you're acting in. So what is your ultimate movie that you would want to do in the future?
Wow, that's a great question. I feel as though I feel as though I'd make a good director. And in some ways, as I look back on my career, I wish I had spent more time in that direction. But, you're always sort of hunting for your next acting job, and the opportunity didn't really present itself. And I didn't focus on it. I should have. But it's not too late. And so, because I think that the type of directing that I'd like to do, that I'm good at, and the type of stories that I'd like to tell are very much Altman-esque, or that type of, hey, look, I'm good at creating a safe space and getting real behavior out of actors and telling that story, a really character-driven story. I wouldn't know how to direct a Bond movie or stuff like that. That's not my thing, or a Marvel movie, you know what I mean? So, and I wouldn't be interested in that. Not that there's anything wrong with those movies. I just, I'm not good at that. But that would be the ultimate for me, is telling some sort of great story with heart, but like an Altman movie maybe is also really very funny. So I'd love that.
All right. I want to get into you a little bit.
Okay.
If you would share with us, what were the top 3 movies you loved as a kid?
Wow. Well, the top one, and it remains the top one to this day, is Rocky. I remember when that movie came out, I was 7 years old, and it was the very first movie, I believe, it's certainly the very first one I ever remember my family taking me to. It was a rainy Saturday, and they said, I could tell my mom and dad wanted to go to it, and they were like, is it okay for Jonathan? Because I was only 7. And my dad said, it's supposed to be really good to because my mom was like, oh, it's a fight movie. I don't know if I'm going to want him to, so, and I mean, I was mesmerized. I was so taken with the emotion of that story and the triumph, you know what I mean? So that had me hooked. And the other 2, I suppose I'd say, there's so many. I mean, The Godfather, but also in a comedic vein. I came of age in the late 70s and early 80s when you had movies like Caddyshack and Fletch and Vacation. Those are favorites of mine that my friends and I can just quote. Oh, and Midnight Run. That's another one. I can quote Midnight Run. Oh, Big Lebowski. I'll go all day long with you here, Anyway.
So The Godfather, though, you weren't a kid when you saw The Godfather.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, when I saw it for the first time, it had already come out in theaters.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for entertaining that question. Now, I'd love to get back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the interview about changing your look, and maybe you're not necessarily aging, but you're just changing your look into a little bit more of that trendy, natural hair color that seems to be, really on the rise right now. You made that transition from going from a dark chestnut brown to a, silver fox look is what you have right now. And you were sharing with us your opinion about aging in Hollywood. I am wondering, how different do you think it is for the females that you work alongside, and they've decided to embrace their age and go silver or gray, versus men? What's your opinion on, what do you think the casting directors might be thinking when they see the 2 different genders?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm sure that there's still some sort of, it's more difficult, let's say, for a female to go gray. It's much easier than it used to be, but there isn't that, quintessential silver fox look, like you said, that you can morph into as a guy. But honestly, I wonder about how it's changed my career opportunities, especially because, I'm 53. So I'm still a little young for someone to have a full head of gray hair. It's not that unusual, but so it kind of puts me in this weird category of like most guys who have this type of hair would be late 50s, early 60s, and I'm not there yet.
Mhm.
So I wonder if it has had a negative impact. I don't know, but I was, I had the opportunity. I don't regret it. And as you said, you can always dye it back. I think that fortunately COVID accelerated that. Hey, let's have a natural look. I wish we'd see more of that throughout the industry. I mean, it pains me when I see these beautiful women who have been beautiful their whole lives have work done and suddenly they're a little less natural. And it's just like, just let yourself age naturally. I think you mentioned a guest before, which I think is a spot on approach to this. There's nothing wrong with doing things that make you the greatest version of yourself you can be.
Right.
It's when you start to try and reverse the aging process in some way that it just feels unnatural. And it's just, ironically, it's so much less beautiful than just being yourself, So
Exactly. And, I won't name which actress it was that I have interviewed fairly recently. But she, was mentioning, she said, I wanted to do headshots without makeup and I just wanted my hair natural. And my manager's like, no, what are you doing? Burn these pictures. Like, don't ever let them get out. And he's like, don't get me wrong. You're a beautiful woman. It's just showing your age a little bit and you don't want a gray list. And I thought, but if you think about it, in the world of life, which, like you said, we're storytellers. So in the world of telling stories that include human beings, it's every age, it's every look, it's every ethnicity, it's everybody. So I just find it so interesting. You have some of the women that really, like in the late 80s and the 90s, you had Angela Lansbury, and you had some of the women that were leading ladies finally in some television shows and soap operas. I love for this because they just continue and go on and on and on, and they're still just as prestigious within those projects as anybody else. And I love being able to see people of all ages because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think we're getting there. Hollywood does reflect the world in general. It has to, it's forced to, but sometimes it can lag like any other industry. And, I think the more people respond to that authenticity, the more Hollywood will display it. So we can just keep living our truths and wanting to see that. And, it will change.
Absolutely. So I have a fun game here on my desk. I know we're right at 42 minutes. Do you have just a few more minutes for me? All right. This is a trivia set that was sent to the show, and you have 4 decades to choose from. So I'll let you choose the decade, and then I'll ask 3 questions, and we'll see if you get them right.
Oh my gosh.
So I have the 80s, 90s, 2000, or 2010s.
Let's do 80s.
80s. All right. So let's see what is coming up from the 80s. I wish I had 80s big hair music or something like that. All right. So let me shuffle them here. I'm not looking. We'll just pick one at random. Who directed The Karate Kid?
Oh. God, who directed it? I don't know.
Oh,
I know that movie too so well.
So this is, and you know what? I have to say, I'm showing my age a little bit. It is how do you say his last name?
John Avildsen. How do I not know that he directed Rocky? Yes, that's right. Okay.
Okay. All right. That was the only thing when I put my eyes on it, and I'm like, maybe I don't know the answer to this question. How many Friday the 13th movies are there?
I don't know that one, but I'll say 11.
11. So if you're just listening to the show, our choices are 11, 9, 10, or 8. I'd say maybe 8. Nope, there are 11.
Hey!
Yep, there are 11. So you got that one. What famous sci-fi movie did not come out in the 80s? RoboCop, The Terminator, Blade Runner, or Alien? I,
Um,
I think I know this one.
I think I'll say the Terminator.
I think it's Alien. Didn't Alien come out in like 91?
Oh, was it Alien? Yeah, maybe.
All right, let's see. Alien. It's
Alien?
Alien.
Okay.
All right, one more. All right, this is a lot about the horror films. Let's see if I can. Oh, all right, Super Bowl. Who won the Super Bowl in 1989? 49ers, Patriots, Cowboys, or Giants?
Well, I always so if you're talking about the 88 season, which they probably are, because that was, and then the Super Bowl was played in 89, that would have been the 49ers. Yeah, so I'm going to say 49ers.
So the Giants game I'm thinking of, was that the 87 game?
Okay, so in the 80, let's see. The Giants game you're thinking of, the Giants won in 86 or the 86 season. Yeah.
All right, let's see. What does it say? The 49ers.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
49ers. All right, well, that's fun. Well, thank you for doing a little trivia with me tonight. And thank you for spending your time with us. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. We have some wild weather coming our way. It's actually, my phone keeps going off from the Weather Channel saying severe cold. Like, we're going to break records. It's going to be so cold this weekend. Wow. So I hope you have a really pretty weekend to spend with the family.
We do. Although my son and I, we love the cold because we light a fire in our fireplace. And in Los Angeles, that's not that often you get the chance to do that. So snuggle up.
Well, thank you. I certainly will. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time this evening. And you're a friend of the show. So anytime that you have something that you'd like to announce or, just have us go check out or share with us, please let me know. And I'd love to have you on the show again. Thank you so much. I'd love to be here. It was a pleasure. Truly. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. I did too. All right. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. You too. Bye-bye. Bye. Oh my goodness, everybody. That was a great show. I'm super excited. There's 3 more shows coming tomorrow morning. So I will see you here bright and early. Everybody, as always, we are blessed. You are blessed. And I love you. And I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.